In 2008, Fitbit released their own clip-on device to track your steps, calories burned, and even sleep patterns. Then 7 years later, in 2015, Apple released the Apple Watch. This was a huge moment for the wearable market, and they have had great success. But nowadays, in 2023, we have so many manufacturers and so many options when it comes to smartwatches. But which one is the best one for you? In this video, you'll find out what is the best smartwatch for you and which one would you like to use the most and which one you're going to get the most use out of. Making a smartwatch nowadays is incredibly hard. Everybody has their own smartwatches. Apple has one, Google has one, Samsung has one, Garmin has one, Polar has one, and so many more very cheap smartwatches, incredibly expensive smartwatches. Luxury brands have smartwatches. Everybody can create smartwatch, but which one is the best for you? I believe there are three types of smartwatches. You have the ones that come from the phone manufacturers that they want you stock in their ecosystem. Then you have the ones that are watches with a lot of training aid and a lot of kind of like sensors to track your training. And then you have kind of like the bands that do give you time, but also track very minimally what you need. Number one is the ones from the phone manufacturers. So like your Apple Watches, your Samsung Galaxy Watches, your Pixel Watches, and all the smartphone manufacturers' smartwatch. These are created with the sole purpose that if you already have a phone from that manufacturer, then hopefully they want you to get their watches as well. So if you have an iPhone from Apple, then it makes sense to go for an Apple Watch. If you have a Google Pixel, then it makes sense to go for a Pixel Watch, or that's what they want you to get. It goes to get you into their ecosystem, and obviously when it works so well like the iPhone with the Apple Watch, then it just makes sense. But these are smartwatches that you can do a lot of the basics, and they will track a lot of the basics things. So they will track your sleep patterns if you wear it at night, they'll track your steps during the day, calories burned, your heart rate, and many other things. But they're also connected to your phone, so you'll be able to receive notifications, you'll be able to reply to emails. Some of them you can even make phone calls through your smartwatch. And this is when there's a slight variation from other smartwatches. Smartwatches are created from phone manufacturers. For me, personally, they're more of a secondary phone on your wrist instead of an actual watch that has smart capabilities. And what I mean by that is they want you to use your smartwatch as a second phone. They want you to use your smartwatch to reply to emails without you having to take your phone out, or they want you to use the smartwatch to look at notification when you're very busy or when you're on the go, so you don't have to take your phone out, which is completely fine. And they will also track different activities as well. So most smartwatches will track an array of different activities, but it's nowhere near as big as some of the other watches I'm just going to talk about. These smartwatches from these phone manufacturers, most of them are great. They're absolutely amazing. They definitely obviously vary in price range, so you can get them as cheap as probably 200 to 150 pounds if you go for like the Apple Watch SE, or if you go for one of the Huawei GT watches. Then you have kind of like the normal tier that they have, the regular Apple Watches, Pixel Watch, and Samsung Galaxy ones. They kind of hover around the 250 to 400 pound mark. And then you have the incredibly expensive, which at the moment is just Apple, that they have their higher end Apple Watch Ultra, which is retail for about 700 to 800 pounds in the UK, which is about, I think it's about the same, $750 to $900 in the US. I would recommend these watches if you basically want a quicker access to your phone without having to take your phone out. If you really want your phone and your smartwatch to be connected seamlessly and get things right away and be able to do a lot of things that you might do on your phone, like little tasks like looking at notification and checking them on your wrist, then I would recommend you to get one of this. If you really want to use tech to enhance your training, elevate your training, and optimize your training with all the data that the following watches that I'm going to recommend you, then these following watches are for you. And this is when we go into the second type of smartwatches, which are the one, I don't want to call them fitness watches because they're all kind of fitness. I'm going to call it the training athlete watches. I got a long way to get there, but bear with me for a second. And these are the Garmin's of the world and the Polos of the world. I'm sure there are other companies there that do mostly training watches, but these are the two that I know, and they're two of the biggest out there right now that don't make smartphones. So Polo and Garmin, they've both been in the fitness industry and fitness tech for a long time, and they have different types of tech and different sort of tracking devices. They obviously got eventually into the smartwatch world, which is now absolutely booming. Garmin has an incredible array of smartwatches. You can get a smartwatch from Garmin for as low as 150 to 200 pounds, all the way up to thousands of pounds, depending on the sports and depending on the capabilities of the watch that you want to wear. These are watches that the lower end watches, call them lower end, but some of the ones between 150 to 400 pounds, they're starting to be kind of like a hybrid in terms of they almost have the same capabilities as the Apple watches, but they don't have the same capabilities as the more expensive watches that Garmin sells. So these are kind of like, I like to call them hybrid watches, that you can still do a lot of it, they're kind of colorful, and you can still do quite a lot of the things that you want to do on your phone, and you can still have a lot of the training things that they have. You still have the same sensors, so obviously again they track your heart rate, sleep patterns, calories burned through the day, steps obviously, and then so many different activities as well. This is something that Garmin has done really well, that you can track basically any activity under the sun with their watch. This is when it gets interesting. Once you get past the 400 pound mark, this is when watches get very specific, and very specific set of people will buy this specific set of watches. These are watches that are mostly built for those to do very long distance running consistently, those to do ultra running, those that do hiking to extreme levels, those that do diving to very deep levels, and those that do kind of like different things, maybe snowboarding as well. Like if you do backcountry snowboarding and you kind of need certain skills and obviously certain tech to wear when you go out there. But these are smartwatches that are built to last. They're built for extreme weather. They're also built with extreme battery life, so they can last up to 2 weeks if you're tracking every single day, and then can last up to a month if you're not tracking anything. But these are watches that are meant to track very specific activities. There are some watches that are meant to track if you're ultra running, they're meant to track where your checkpoints are. They have a map built into the watch so you don't get lost and you know how to get back. They obviously have different survival things built into the watches. If you're a diver, there are diving watches that will tell you how deep you are, water pressures, and all this kind of stuff. But these are watches that are more specific, and these are brands that are more specific to those that want to take the training to the next level and they want to use tech to improve their training. So if you are one of those people, I would recommend you to go for Garmin or Polar, because again, they're incredibly well built. I've worn a couple of Garmin's over my lifetime and they're amazingly well built. Again, they're also expensive, they're not cheap, but they are worth the investment, I believe. But maybe you don't want to spend more than £200 on a smartwatch. And if you don't want to spend more than £200 on a smartwatch, then I believe this next set of smartwatches are for you. And these are mostly like the very simple ones. Then you might see some people, there might be a knockoff brands or anything like that, but there also can be really good brands like Fitbit, and Polar as well does some really good smartwatches at a much cheaper price. These are smartwatches that will connect to your phone, but they won't give you all the benefits and all the features that you'll see on Apple watches or Garmin watches, like seeing notifications or kind of interacting with the watch itself too much. You'll still get the basics, because every smartwatch will have the basics like tracking your calories, tracking your steps, probably tracking your workouts as well, tracking a certain amount of activities, and obviously tracking your sleep pattern as well if you wear it at night. And these are watches that kind of range between 150 all the way down to probably 50 or 40 pounds if you find them really good on Amazon. These are watches that I think are great for those that are looking to get into smartwatches, or maybe they just want again, they're kind of like more like a fitness tracker or like a lifestyle tracker, because you can still see the very basics of things like tracking your steps, sleep patterns, and all that stuff, and then you can use that data to use it better. But then again, you still have the watch and you still have the time on there, which is the most important part, because what's the point of wearing a smartwatch if it doesn't tell you the time? But these are great watches, so I would recommend you, if you want to keep it really simple and fairly inexpensive, then yes, I would recommend you to go for either Polar, or I believe Amazon does have their own smartwatch, so which is kind of actually quite good. I believe I've heard that. I've never used it, but I did use, when I first started fitness, I used a Polar band, which had a very small LED screen, or yeah, it was a very small LED screen. It still tell you the time, it tell you kind of like how hard you're working out, your heart rate, sleep patterns, and all that stuff. That's still very simple and still very kind of simple features that you find in every smartwatch. But those are the three main types of smartwatches that I believe there are. There are all the fitness trackers, so if you're more into looking to your training more or into your sleep more, if you're looking for your sleep, I believe the Oura Ring has been one of those things that have been booming a lot on social media lately. I've heard great things. I've never worn one, but apparently it's really good to track your sleep and other things. Then you have Whoop bands. Those are mostly like fitness specific trackers, because they track basically your sleep, your workouts, your kind of like how strained you are, how much you should be resting and stuff like that. But they also don't have, it's not a smartwatch, because it's just a tracker that is just a band around your arm or your leg or whatever it is, but they don't have kind of like the time and stuff like that. So yeah, think about that. Think kind of what kind of watches you want to wear. Again, just a quick recap: if you want to go for a smartwatch, that's going to be very similar to your smartphone, a very similar smartphone experience on your wrist, and then I would recommend you to go for probably the one that your phone manufacturers build. So if you have an iPhone, have a look into Apple Watches or Garmin watches actually. If you have a Google Pixel, then maybe look into Pixel watches. The good thing about having a Google Pixel or a Samsung phone or any other Android phone is that ecosystems are being more loosey-goosey, so you can find a good Android watch without having to be from the same phone manufacturer. If you're looking for a more specific smartwatch with training purposes and using tech for your fitness and your training, then look into Polar and Garmin watches. They're amazing. They're absolutely incredible. Great battery life. The battery life is the best part, and they're amazingly well built. And if you're looking for something more inexpensive and just tracking the very simple things like calories burned, sleep patterns, and tracking your steps on a day-to-day basis, then again, look into Polar. They might have some cheaper bands. Fitbit as well, they're quite inexpensive compared to some of the bigger dogs. But then obviously have a look around on Amazon for those kind of watches with 5-star. But this would be a market that we'll definitely see grow a lot more, especially with the introduction of the Apple Watch Ultra that we saw from Apple last year, because that means that we're going to see other phone manufacturers go for a Pro or an Ultra smartwatches in the future. Will we ever see a Pixel Watch Ultra? Maybe, I don't think so, but we might see a Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra, since they already have a Galaxy phone that is an Ultra phone. So it'll be interesting to see how this market grows, because again, last year the market size was $158 billion and they shipped 113 million units, but Apple itself shipped 46.9 million of those 113 million units last year. So they have a big pie, they have a big chunk of that pie for the market. So it'll be interesting to see how they all come up a little bit more, and we may see some other new ones. But that is all from me today, guys. Thank you for watching another tech video. I'll see you guys on the very next one. Peace. Bye.